they don't legislate away a company. They legislate away a sellable market. What happened with burning coal? What happened with big tobacco? What happened with alcohol above a certain proof? What happened with, I mean, think about it. What happened with unlimited speed limits?
Right.
Like they don't kill the company.
They tax it or
they change the rules around it. So now all of a sudden, if they were to have something like, if they were to create a cyber tax where for every megabyte of information that you use on the electrical grid, you pay a certain taxes. Well, now that would absolutely destroy social media. Right. Overnight.
Right.
Right. Without attacking social media.
Okay. Well, you definitely answered the question without answering it. Brilliant. No, but we got that though. Okay. So by the way, what would happen if you as ex-CIA and your wife too, which I think people who are a fan of you know, your wife is ex-CIA. What would happen if you violated the fourth basket of secrets?
We would be held criminally liable.
Like treason?
It wouldn't be treason. It would be treason if we violated that secret. If we violated the fourth bucket of secrets by willfully giving those secrets to a foreign adversary, knowing that that adversary would get an advantage over the American people, that would be treason.
I see.
Because treason requires intent.
Right.
And intent has to be proven.
Right.
There have been plenty of CIA officers who have violated the fourth basket, right? John Kiriakou is one of the most notorious, right? He told secrets he was told not to tell that damaged national security. But what he was held in was he was held in violation of his contract, but he was also held in the mismanagement of classified information. Right. So he didn't go to prison for treason. He went to prison for irresponsibility, basically. Okay. Right. That's the most likely thing. It's still a criminal offense, but that's what would happen. Okay. So this leads into me asking your opinion first on Edward Snowden. You know, one side sees him as a, freedom fighter, a brave individual, certainly a brave individual, whether you agree with what he did or not. Somebody who exposing information to the American people about the NSA and basically warrantless spying. He's now in Russia in exile. What do you think about that? Edward Snowden's a coward and a villain, and there's no way around it. Like, I understand people have a different opinion. Their opinion is 100% ill-informed and wrong. Okay. Right? If you think Snowden is innocent, you're an idiot. Snowden is not innocent. He took secrets he knew he was not supposed to share. And then he took extra secrets that had nothing to do with spying on Americans. He took additional secrets from his knowledge of what was happening at NSA, and he used them both as bargaining chips so that when he exposed, when he whistleblew on NSA, and then America didn't like it, he knew he had extra money in his pocket, and that's how he was able to negotiate his way across all the adversaries of the United States. Where did he go first? He left here, and I think he went to Cuba, or possibly he went to Uruguay. But he basically jumped from anti-American government to anti-American government until he ended up getting residency in Russia. What kind of hero whistleblower has to befriend every adversary of the United States? Well, that's because he knows what's going to happen to him for exposing. This would be the counter argument, because he knows the consequences of exposing the American government. And so, he has no choice but to live in Russia because it's the only place he's safe. That is a narrative that was written by our adversaries. That dude could have just as easily gone to Sweden or Switzerland or Norway or any country that's neutral, and it had been like, hey, I'm looking for political refuge because my government is going after me for whistleblowing. And those countries would have been, those countries would not have turned him over to the United States. Those countries would have, Norway wouldn't have. No, those countries would have been like, America, tell us what you're going to do with this individual who seems to be adhering to the laws of your own land. But he didn't. Right out of the gates, he didn't adhere to the laws of the land because he was exposing secrets that did not have to do with what he was whistleblowing on. That's what he was using as trade currency, right? Okay. And the damage that Snowden did to national security operations for the United States for decades
To who? To who?
To the American people.
Right. But how was that damaging to the American people?
So,
to show them that they're being spied on illegally?
That's not what was damaging to the American people. So first of all, the American people were not being spied on. The American people were granting approval. They were granting acknowledgement to a company to collect their data. Mm-hmm. And then the company was selling the data to the federal government. There was no federal government mass collection of data. There was an agreement that followed American laws that was approved by court systems that were granted classification levels to be able to understand the program. So the whole thing was legal through the eyes of the court that was being leveraged at the time. Does that mean that a different court interpreting the law a different way at a different time judged differently? Absolutely. That's exactly what happened. The court of 2001 decided it was okay. The court of 2009 decided it was not okay, right? That's the problem with our court system. That's the problem with our judicial system. The point is, there was no mass collection of American data. It was all legal according to the laws at the time.
Okay.
What was for sure illegal was that he was whistleblowing about that program. But what he was trading, the information that he actually downloaded and stole from NSA, were multiple programs in addition to that program.
What were those other programs?
I can't tell you what those other programs were, but those other programs were programs that had nothing to do with collecting on Americans, and they had everything to do with operations that would keep Americans safe. Okay. And as a result of his using both chips to protect himself, it put all of us at risk for a long time.
Do you think that there are situations where when it's appropriate for CIA whistleblowers to whistleblow?
There's always, whistleblowing is protected because there's times when it's appropriate. But it should always be an option of last resort. Like Edward Snowden didn't even go to the Office of Internal Affairs. Like that's who you're supposed to go to first. Whatever your biggest concern is with what's going on inside, you take it to the Internal Affairs Office first. And if the Internal Affairs Office doesn't take you seriously, you either take it to them again or you take it to another Office of Internal Affairs. Right? Here's what's crazy. Snowden wasn't a staff officer. He was a contractor, which means he worked for an American company that was on contract to work for NSA. So he could have raised it in his own company. Then he could have raised it inside of the NSA. Then he could have raised it with like a third party government agency whose job is to keep contractors and agencies accountable. He had 3 different internal investigative options that he could have raised that to, protected by the whistleblower laws and everything, right? And then even after if all three of those still would have rejected him, he still could have gone to media if it was American media. Instead, this guy skipped all 3 of those, went to foreign media, and then took like bonus secrets like that. That shows that either he was wildly ignorant of what he was about to do, or he was very malicious in his intent. And he knew that he needed to have an insurance policy because he would need to run and he would need to have a plan.
Could it be possible that he was an asset of Russia?
Unlikely. It's unlikely that he would have been an asset because Russia would have had more to gain if Snowden would have just stayed invisible. Because they'd be able to keep pulling secrets from him forever.
Right.
As soon as he goes public, he's useless.
Right.
Now he's essentially like a what's it called? A scapegoat. And he's a model. He's a representation now of all the things wrong with democracy.
Now, the guy in the news, we've kind of forgotten about Snowden a little bit. The guy in the news now who just basically signed a plea deal and is not going to spend the rest of his life in prison is Julian Assange. I'm sure you saw that just a couple of days ago. Refresh my memory. He was the WikiLeaks guy.
Correct.
What is your take on this?
He's not an American citizen.
Right.
He has no responsibility to protect American secrets. He is not under American jurisdiction.
Okay.
He has not signed any contract to protect American knowledge. Like Julian Assange, he exposed American secrets, and he.
Can you refresh us? What were some of those secrets?
I mean,
in the WikiLeaks,
there's so many. And WikiLeaks has shared classified essentially what they do is they share classified documents.
Right.
So documents classified by the US federal government from the Department of State, the CIA, the FBI, he would post them to a website. So somebody would give him those documents. He would then post them on that person's behalf.
Right.
So he was part of the chain of custody for espionage, the stealing and disclosure of secrets. But the only way that he could be prosecuted under US law is if he was on US soil. To be prosecuted under U.S. law, because otherwise it was law out that he was not part of that jurisdiction.
Right. And not an American citizen.
So
his adjudication was just, in your opinion.
I mean, yeah, the world has an argument that Julian Assange should not be villainized. Right. All he was an entrepreneur and he made his money by increasing transparency. There's problems with that, right? Like if you're very transparent about America, but not so transparent about Russia, then you're a tool of covert influence.
Right.
But you're not an American company and you're not an American citizen. So you're kind of like, you can't be held to an American standard. You might be held to an international standard, especially if you violate multiple countries' laws and like a United Nations ICC kind of thing comes into you. That's why that exists.
I see.
Right. So yes, I would say that the Assange example is a much clearer example of how governments overreact to information sharing, where the Snowden example is a very clear example of someone who violated multiple civil and criminal contracts and violated American laws was within American jurisdiction.
Okay. Wow. Last couple of questions. I always seem to like, maybe it's the child in me. I always come back to like morality, but it doesn't seem like that's how foreign policy is dictated. It seems like it's all about what is best for your particular nation state.
What happens, so there's a concept in covert influence called messaging and narrative. We hear it all the time as narrative, political narrative, et cetera, right? Yeah. Narrative comes after messaging. So you can't talk about narrative unless you talk about messaging first. Messaging is emotional. So you message an idea using emotions. Right. So when it comes to foreign policy, you message the foreign policy emotionally, right? It's an attack on democracy. What about the starving children? Yeah. We can't let warlords rule the day. Right. It's not Christian, right? Yeah. So you have to message emotionally. And then you have several emotional messages that all amount to one rational narrative. The war on drugs. We must fight a war on drugs. Right. We must fight a war against Islamic extremism, right? But then you even see when Islamophobia becomes a thing, they stopped calling it Islamic extremism and they just started calling it extremism.
Oh, right.
Extremism.
Right.
Because they didn't want to trigger Muslims who were not extremists.
Right.
So they just started calling it extremism. But that's all the process of messaging and narrative. So what happens in foreign policy is that when geopolitics need to be shaped, they tell the American people a message. And they know that that message will be adopted over time with a narrative that you tell yourself. The message is what I tell you. The narrative is what you tell yourself. The message is what I tell you that makes you emotional. The narrative is what you tell yourself to rationalize how you feel, right? Think about when you buy a new pair of shoes. The advertisement for the shoe is like bright colors, cool music, beautiful women, hardcore athletes. So you tell yourself like that shoe makes me, what's actually happening is that shoe makes me feel good, makes me feel sporty, makes me feel hip. And then you go spend $250 on the shoes and you tell yourself rationally, these are good shoes. They're high quality. They fit me well. I got a 50% discount because I went to whatever. You rationalize why you bought, but you bought emotionally. It's the same way in politics. It's the same way with foreign policy. It's the same way with why every single person who casts a vote in November is casting a narrative vote after a series of messages that set them on a rational internal path.
So my question was morality. When you were getting in the farm, CIA taught, CIA brainwashed, whatever it is, it's brainwashing, but you're getting brainwashed. Are you taught that the School of Americas, I'm just using that as an example because I studied Latin American, modern history for a long time, like teaching people that were, ran dictatorships in Central American countries, and they, brutally killed people in Guatemala, Nicaragua, El Salvador, in tactics that they learned in Georgia from, the Army and the CIA and like that. Does the CIA now look at that stuff as like, oh, that's wrong, like we shouldn't work with them? Or do they just look at it as whatever benefits the United States?
It's more of the latter.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
And are we better off, even though, yes, there's awful that happens, are we still better off looking at the world and the CIA looking at the world through what's good for us?
I mean, that's up to you to decide. I'm of the opinion that it's a clear yes.
Right. The world is safer with the CIA collecting information around the world.
Absolutely. Because here's the thing. Somebody is going to be the superpower.
Yep.
Somebody's going to be the superpower.
Right.
And whoever that superpower is, they're going to have a secret intelligence service.
Yeah.
So who better than us? Are we perfect? No. Are we good? Like, do we do it for good reasons? Probably not. But are we the best? The answer is probably empirically yes. And if somebody has to be the superpower, I'm glad that's the superpower that I have on my passport cover.
Yeah.
Because that gives me an advantage, that gives me power, that gives me wealth that somebody else who has a Argentine passport doesn't have. So at the end of the day, it has to be somebody. If you want it to be somebody else, good on you.
Yeah.
I would recommend you just go there now. Right? If you think it's better for China to be the superpower, just go ahead and hop a flight to China right now. Just go invest right there. You want Spain to be the superpower? Go to Spain. You want Canada to be the superpower? Go to Canada. Get the out of here so that the only people here are the people that are contributing to making America the only superpower in the world. Because here's the thing.
But you're leaving though.
I'm leaving, but I'm still building American economy wherever I'm going.
So you're still going to pay taxes here?
Absolutely.
Why don't we talk about?
I'm still going to have an American company. I'm still going to build and pay taxes here. I'm still going to raise my kids as Americans.
So do you think, well, okay, we'll argue about that on the Patreon. Do you think now, what would you recommend for somebody that's, say, not even me, somebody that's 25 years old, and they want the best, and they're entrepreneurial. They're not asking for handouts. They want as much freedom as possible to do business and to have a clean, safe life, and kind of be away from a nuclear accident, right? Would you recommend that they leave the country but retain their passport?
No. Really? I'm only leaving the country for my children.
Okay, but say they are children, 22 years old.
22 years old, not a child. 22 years old.
That's a kid. But
it's a kid compared to us.
Right.
It's not an 11-year-old.
Right.
Right. By 22 years old, you've studied what you want to study. You have the education you want. Like there are tons of opportunities for you to go abroad. Absolutely. Right. But what I'm saying is the thing that drives me to make my decision is because I want my son, who is 11 now, when he turns 14, I want him to be in a different country where there are more opportunities for him to learn a language, for him to, meet new people, for him to have freedom of movement, for me not to worry about him getting like shot or run over by a car because we're in a country where like it's so heavily, again, I'm going to most likely move us to a very socialist country because it's very structured. The rules are very set. The government overspends to support the people.
Right.
Like that will be in my best interest for that moment.
Oh, that's interesting.
But then once my kid's 24, 25, I bring him right back here and now he's got multiple languages.
Yeah.
He appreciates American freedom because he's experienced what it's like to be in a socialist country that doesn't have freedom. Right. Right now, your average 22-year-old has no idea what it's like in the rest of the world.
Wow.
Like you were saying earlier, slavery doesn't exist. You're wrong.
I didn't say slavery doesn't exist. I meant the institution, the formalized government-sanctioned institution of the slave trade no longer exists. Of course, they say
in the United States.
Are there countries that
absolutely
formalize on the books?
It's not called slavery. It's called something else, but 100% it is institutionalized. If you go
where?
Saudi Arabia, Oman, Jordan, I'm sorry, not Jordan, Qatar, Bahrain, UAE. If you go to any of those countries, it is 100% a fundamental requirement for them to even have working economies. The UAE, the population of Emiratis,
it's like
800,000.
Yeah, and none of them work. It's too hot.
And they're all sanctioned because they all have oil money. Right. So who runs the country?
Nepalese workers
and Pakistani workers and Indian workers, and they're all, and Filipinas, and they're all third world countries. When they come over, they sign a contract with a company. That part of their contract stipulates that they give up their passport until they earn a certain amount of money to get their passport back. Wow. And then when they go, like they'll sign up with company A, and then they'll actually go to the country and they'll be registered and documented and everything to fall under like complete control of the Emirati government. And then they won't have any of the fair treatment laws or anything that even allow them to complain about their boss. So they get beat, they get overworked, they get taxed, they get told that they can only buy their water from one source, and that one source is controlled by the boss. It's all the same that we did, like to the Chinese and to the Irish, right? It's still slavery. It's just not, we're not clubbing people over the head, putting them on a boat, and then like beating them in the field. But I think it's the same process.
I think that's very well swept under the rug, and that's why I think a thing like TikTok, for as much as it kids' brains up, a lot of things are there, but you can get just as stupid off of Instagram as you can off TikTok. The fact that people, when they really learned, if we knew on a mass scale what's happening to Nepalese laborers in Qatar, in the UAE,
nothing would change.
I don't necessarily think that's true. Look at what's changing in it. 37,000 people is all it took for things to change in Gaza, at least in terms of, you know, the world coming together and doing what they can to stop Israel from doing that. My point, I guess, is that ubiquitously back in the day, owning people was just part of life. It's what God ordained. I'm just making the argument to you, or not even an argument, just kind of what I think. I'm an optimist. I think humanity is moving to, I think we're moving towards God, and we're moving towards more cooperation. I think technology is enabling that. And I think that government bodies will ultimately become redundant, because there will, hopefully, in an ideal world, nothing will be ideal. Hopefully we'll get to the point where you won't need to have the CIA spying and causing disruption, you know, or the KGB, whatever they're called now, secret police meddling everywhere in the world, because everybody lives better. You know what I mean?
I hope that you're right, but I'm betting against you.
That's fair. That's fair. Dude, Andy Bustamante. Well, come over on Patreon, because I want to promote your business, because I'm fascinated, and I kind of want to leave the US too. I think we should all leave for a while. You know what I mean? We've been here. We get it. You know what I mean?
Gap year, team gap year.
Yes, a gap year. So please plug away. Tell us about Everyday Spy.
Absolutely. My company, Everyday Spy, I'm a teaching and learning platform. I train individuals, I train corporate executives, I train the ultra high net worth on how to apply spy skills to everyday life to gain an unfair advantage.
Right.
So that's what we're all about. We're all about using spy education to break whatever barrier is holding you back personally, emotionally, physically, in your business, in your career. Because like I was telling you before, there are a lot of secrets that have been kept from the American people about CIA, the skills that we use, the training that we have, but those secrets were never meant to be kept secret. Right. They were just over protected. Right. So now I get a chance to share those with the world. And as a result, I get to make a better, stronger America and a better and stronger world.
Okay. So even individuals that, you know, maybe want to improve their own business, they want to learn how to pick up girls, they want to get more respect,
build more confidence,
from their peers,
optimize their brain, optimize their health, get better sleep, build better social networks, build networks that actually work for you instead of networks that drain you of all of your time, energy, and resources. Right. All of those are systematic processes that CIA taught us.
Okay. Can we get some examples on the Patreon? Because I want to know, because I might become a student. You never know. Okay. Dude, Andy, what a pleasure. How have I done as an interviewer?
On a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah.
I'll give you a solid like 7.
Yo, take it. Take it, son. Yeah, no, that was a treat, man. And this is how you learn. You talk to, just brains like yours, man. I really appreciate it. So patreon.com/TheConnect Show. A little more Andy Bustamante. Check him out. He's all over the internet. And then, Everyday Spy. Congratulations on the business.
Thanks, man. You'll find me at everydayspy.com, and you'll find my podcast at the Everyday Spy Podcast, and on social media at Everyday Spy.
Yes, sir. Thanks, buddy.
So fresh on. Freedom.